Long ago, no animal on Earth had made fire, not even once. Fire only appeared when nature caused it, and the biggest trigger had been lightning. A bright strike had hit a dry tree or grass, and suddenly flames had run across the land. To early animals, this had felt like a monster with no body. It had moved fast, it had eaten plants, and it had made the air hard to breathe. When a wildfire started, animals had not fought it. They had not understood it. They had only reacted. Birds had lifted off early, but many small creatures had needed a path to escape. Herd animals had stampeded, not because they wanted to, but because heat had pushed them. Fire had not chased like a predator, yet it had still trapped and burned. The rule had been simple: smell smoke, then run. After the flames passed, the danger had not ended right away. Hot ground had burned feet. Hidden embers had flared up again when the wind returned. Food had disappeared where plants had turned to ash, and animals had been forced to travel farther to eat. Some places had grown back later, but nobody had planned that. In this world, fire had been a surprise attack from the sky, and every creature had only feared it. Early humans did not make fire yet, but they did not always run as far as other animals. One day, lightning started a wildfire nearby. Smoke rose, heat pushed outward. The group moved in closer than was safe, then stopped. They watched flames eat dry grass and crackle through branches. It looked like a living thing. It also looked useful, but first they had to survive it. They learned by paying attention. When they stood too close, the heat hurt and sparks jumped. When they backed away, the fire still stayed bright, but the pain stopped. That distance mattered. It was a new rule their bodies understood fast. Fire could be dangerous and still be watched. Fire did not chase them if they respected space. That simple idea changed what they dared to do next. After the flames passed, the ground stayed warm. Some logs kept glowing and smoking. The humans did not touch the hottest parts, but they stayed nearby. In the cool air, that leftover heat felt good on skin and hands. They gathered close enough to be warmed, not close enough to be burned. They did not control fire yet, but they did something important. They used it. After watching fires from far away, people still had a huge problem. The flames never waited for them. A wildfire could burn out fast, or move away, or get stopped by rain. So when the fire was finally safe enough, they searched the edges. Not for big flames, for tiny glowing pieces. Embers stayed hot even when the loud part of the fire was gone. Carrying an ember sounded simple, but it fought back. Wind could make it flare up. Touching it could burn skin. Dropping it could start a new fire in the wrong place. People tried smart tricks. They tucked embers into dry bark, or inside a hollow piece of wood, or under ash. They fed it a little air, but not too much. Then they walked, carefully, step after step, protecting that small red glow like it mattered more than anything, because it did. When they reached camp, they did not need to wait for lightning anymore. They placed the ember into a prepared pile of dry grass and sticks, and the fire grew again. Fire started traveling with humans instead of only with storms. Carrying embers helped, but it still depended on having fire already. So people reached for a bigger power, making fire from nothing they could see. They tested dry sticks and hard stones. Most tries failed. Smoke came, then vanished. Hands got sore. The pile stayed cold. But they kept learning a simple rule. Fire needed the right materials, and it needed steady work. One way used wood on wood. A straight stick spun or rubbed against another piece until tiny bits of wood turned into hot dust. That dust formed a small glowing spot like a secret coal. It had to be treated gently. People fed it with soft, dry plant fibers, then blew carefully. Too hard, and it died just right, and it grew into a flame. Another way used stone. When people struck certain rocks together, sharp sparks jumped out. Sparks were quick, so they aimed them into very dry material that could catch easily. When a spark finally held, it meant everything changed. Fire was not only found or borrowed anymore, it was made. That turned fire into a tool, something people could create when they needed it. Once people could make fire when they needed it, they did not only use it for warmth, they used it for food. At first, meat and plants got dropped near the flames by accident, but something surprising happened. The food changed. It softened. It smelled stronger. It tasted better. That change became a new idea. Fire could cook. Cooking changed what humans could eat. Tough roots that were too hard to chew became softer and easier to swallow. Meat that once carried hidden germs became safer after heat touched it. Stomachs worked less, and bodies got more energy from the same bite. That mattered. When food gave more power, people could walk farther and think longer. Cooking also changed how people gathered. Raw food got eaten quickly, wherever it was found. Cooked food took time, so everyone waited. Families and friends stayed close to the fire while meals finished. They watched the flames and the food together again and again. The fire stopped being only a tool. It became a meeting place. Once people could start fire when they needed it, they did not just use it for cooking, they used it every day. A campfire got planned, not accidental. They cleared a space, kept the flames in one spot and fed it the right amount of wood. Too little wood meant it died. Too much meant trouble. Control mattered. Fire stopped being a visitor. It became something the group looked after. Then nights changed. Darkness used to end the day fast because eyes could not see and feet could trip, but a fire gave light that lasted. People moved closer, did small tasks, and watched each other's hands, and the fire did another job at the same time. Many dangerous animals stayed back from the heat, the smoke, and the bright flicker. A guarded flame helped the camp feel safer. With safety and light, something else grew. Social life. The fire pulled everyone to one place again and again until it became the center of the camp. People waited their turn near the warmth, shared food, and paid attention to what others did. Young ones learned by watching. Older ones planned the next day. A simple pile of burning wood strengthened the group because it kept them together. Fire did not only help people eat and stay safe, it also helped them build better things. Someone noticed that wet clay felt soft and easy to shape, but it broke when it dried. So people tried heat. They put shaped clay near a fire, then later inside hotter flames. The clay changed. It turned hard, strong, and more waterproof. That meant real pots for carrying water, storing food, and cooking. Once pots worked, people pushed the idea further. If fire could change clay, maybe it could change stone too. Stone tools already cut and scraped, but some rocks were tricky. They cracked in the wrong places. Heat helped. People warmed certain stones, then cooled them, and the rock split more smoothly. The edges got sharper and more predictable. Fire did not just warm hands anymore, it improved tools. These new objects changed daily life. A tough clay pot meant water lasted longer and food stayed protected from insects and dirt. A sharper stone point meant hunting and cutting took less time and less danger. And every step depended on careful control. Not too cool, not too hot, not too fast. Heat acted like a hidden hand that reshaped the world. Fire stopped being only a flame to look at. It became a way to transform materials. After people learned to bake clay and sharpen stone, another surprise waited inside certain rocks. Some stones held tiny bits of metal. At first, metal just sat there, mixed in with dirt. But then humans built hotter fires than before. They used strong wind and special ovens to push the heat up. The rock did not just crack, it melted and let shiny metal run out. That step was called smelting. Metal did not become useful just because it melted. It had to be shaped. While the metal stayed hot, people hammered it and bent it again and again until it became the shape they needed. That work was called forging. Metal tools lasted longer than stone ones. Metal points cut deeper, metal edges stayed sharp. A new kind of worker appeared too, people who practiced fire, heat and hammering until they got it right. Stronger tools changed what communities could do. Farmers cleared tougher ground and harvested more food. Builders cut wood faster and made tighter joints. Hunters carried better blades and stronger tips, but metal was not everywhere, so people traveled and traded to get it. Work started to split into different jobs: mining, smelting, forging, and carrying supplies. The hotter the fire became, the more organized groups of people had to become. Fire helped build bigger, more complex communities. People stopped using fire only for cooking and metal, and they started using it to do work for them. They heated water until it turned into steam, and that steam pushed hard like an invisible fist. Engineers used that pushing power to move pistons and turn wheels. Now a fire did not just sit in a hearth. It drove an engine, and suddenly one small flame could replace many tired muscles. With steam engines, travel changed fast. Trains rolled over long tracks, and ships crossed oceans without waiting for the wind. Goods and people moved farther and quicker than ever before. At the same time, factories filled with machines that spun thread, cut cloth, and shaped parts all day. A worker did not have to push each tool by hand anymore. The engine kept turning, production jumped, and cities grew around these new jobs. Then, fire's heat powered something even stranger: electricity. Burning coal or gas-heated water. Steam spun turbines, and turbines turned generators that made electric current. That current traveled through wires and became light, motion, and sound in many places at once. One big furnace could power thousands of lamps and machines far away. Fire became a hidden helper working inside power stations while homes and streets changed with switches, motors, and bright nights. In the first world of this story, fire had stayed wild. Lightning had struck. Trees had burned and animals had only run. No one had stopped it. But by today, fire had lived inside human rules. It had cooked dinner on stoves, warmed houses through heaters, and lit candles without burning the whole place. Fire still had power. People had finally held the handle. Fire had also worked far beyond homes. Factories had used heat to melt, shape, and build things at huge scales. Power plants had burned fuels to make electricity that had travelled through wires into cities. Even rockets had depended on burning fuel to push upward, fighting gravity. The same idea kept repeating. Controlled burning made useful energy, but more burning had also made more smoke and dirty air. So fire had needed new rules again. Scientists had measured pollution, and leaders had set limits, because too much smoke had hurt lungs and warmed the planet. Firefighters had planned ahead, since forests had dried and wildfires had spread faster. People had built alarms, sprinklers, and safer materials, because one mistake still had started a disaster. Compared to Chapter 1, fire had changed roles. It had turned from fear into a job.